Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Paranormies present the Ahnenerbe Hour. I am Johnny Monoxide. Tonight, I am joined by Mr. Hazzard McRee. What's up, dude?
Hazzard? Not much, man. Not much.
There he is.
Long ass shift at work.
Yeah, that sucks, dude. It happens. We have Mr. Adam Haidt. What's up, Adam?
Hey, what's going on? It's eggnog season.
It's eggnog season. That's right. We have his deathliness. Death. What's up, sir?
You know, insert creepy line here.
And we also have Mr. Zev. What's happening, dude?
Hey, what's up, neighborinos?
What's up there, neighborinos? Yeah, Simpsons references.
Howdy diddly.
Howdy ho. All right, we're back off of long episode, creepy episode. Damn, that was still triggered by that shit. And also we have with us, and I'm sorry I forgot what's happening, Hydro.
Oh, not much. We got our first snow that stuck today, and it's pretty chilly out. I'm feeling ready for this episode, so yeah.
We're about to bully you on behalf of all of Canada, because we can't bully Canada, really, and you guys deserve it, so...
Well, Canada gets bullied enough by Canada and Trudeau.
Well, we don't really need to bully Canada, because we don't really realize they're there.
Fuck off.
Well,
Just
no,
like you
after a
didn't
while
realize you were there
forget...
at the beginning of this episode.
Right. Well,
exactly.
it's like after a while you forget you're wearing a hat. You know, like you just assume it's there. You assume it's not there. Yeah,
I think it has more to do with the fact you guys can't look up with all the fat around your neck.
All right.
Is this the Paranormies present the 2-hour neg?
Okay, stop.
Actually,
We have an actual episode. So,
I just want to shitpost. We couldn't shitpost last episode because of just how fucking triggering it was. And it just feels good to shitpost. It feels good.
All right, well, Zeb's got a lot of good shit, so...
Yeah, we have a lot of good shit. So, but before we get to that, Hazzard, do your thing.
We have a Twitter. It is at @the_Paranormies. We have a Gmail. It is paranormiespresent@gmail.com. We do accept donations at that same Gmail account, and we got to give a little bit of a shout out. We have a donation this week of $14.88 from Lester Cordell on the TRS forum. Thank you, man. It means the world to us that people like our stuff enough to give us shout outs and money. And we also have a Facebook page.
The Facebook page
Should be easy
is...
to find. Just search for the Paranormies.
Yep.
There you go.
I don't imagine there's too many.
No, we're it. But yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for listening, and thanks for donating. We appreciate it. So tonight we have on a friend of ours. He is into the cryptids of North America. We're talking about skinwalkers and fleshgaits, and we might even get into some Wendigos. What do you think, fellas?
I like it.
I think it sounds pretty spoopy, and I wish I had a gun for the next time I go in the woods.
Oh, yeah. Make sure it has
Why don't you?
ash on the bullets. That's the only way you can kill them.
White ash.
Hold on, what have what on the bullets?
White ash.
White ash is a sacred purification substance in a lot of Native American folklore. So to deal with evil spirits or monsters of any sort, you're going to want to have it around, for sacred circles or to coat your weapons in or whatever.
Could we, perhaps, repurpose the ashes of the Jews for this?
But James
Hold on a second. Implying there were.
You probably
there
could,
were.
but you're messing with the chosen of Moloch, and I really don't want to fuck with a pissy Canaanite fire demon, so I would just leave it alone.
You shoot them with Jew ashes, they're going to turn into super skinwalkers. They're going to grow big noses. They're going
to get shekel walkers.
Or they melt like the Wicked Witch of the West while screeching, Oy vey!
Well, I mean, I figure it's 50-50. I figure if you actually get a shekel walker, they're just going to go on a fucking foreskin tearing rampage. H.
Well, that doesn't sound very.
Or skinwalker.
Well, if it was a
I mean, sometimes if you go out in the forest and you tug on it too hard, it rips. But there's not even going to be any.
Okay, all right. Jesus fucking alt-right. Jesus
okay, this feels so fucking
Christ.
good after last episode.
No, we had to get some of it out. There's a lot of tension. Last week's episode was very serious, and it's still not a joke. And just thinking about it gives me the heebie-jeebies. So let's talk about
the Hebrew of the jeebities.
The Hebrew of jeebities. Jesus Christ. It's like one step to the Jew, like left, right, always. Anyways, skinwalkers.
One step to can't eat bacon.
Yeah. Was it 5 steps of Kevin Bacon, whatever the fuck that game used to be? But it's 6 degrees of can't eat bacon, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, skinwalkers. Somebody give me a definition.
Do you want like the typical Native American one?
Dude, give us.
Tell me what a skinwalker is.
All right. So skinwalker, basically is a shapeshifter of any variety. Now, mostly people, when they think of people that shapeshift, they're going to think of werewolves or some Hollywood type thing. But a lot of skinwalkers and Native American stuff, it's very correlated with their religion and their spirituality. So for them, it's not just, I turn into an animal and I can do cool stuff. It's more, they are introducing themselves into like the circle of nature as an animal or as a participant in a wild way rather than as a human. But so ultimately it's, a shaman or a medicine person that, has a totem or a familiar or some kind of, spirit guide, and they work with it, to kind of increase their own, I guess, presence in the spirit world. And so to increase their own power. Now, a lot of what we know and what we associate with, the word skinwalker is the malevolent kind. It's not someone who uses, their medicine and their magic for, curing tribe members of ailments or, calling for rain. It's to, turn into a wolf and, go slaughter the dude's children that stole your woman 20 years ago. So there's a real dichotomy
stuff
between
is
the
revenge.
malevolent ones. What?
So you're saying a lot of the skinwalker type stuff is like a revenge sort of thing?
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that because
it's the ones we hear about that tends to be the revenge one because, if you have a skinwalker that's using his might and magic to help his people cure them of illness, nobody's going to really be talking about it. Whereas, somebody gets their throat torn out, that's a big story.
Right, it's just like the news. You don't hear about, who, like, what charities are doing in the city today. You hear about how many murders there were and how many police were called. And
that makes sense.
Would you say that it's more prevalent to have benevolent skinwalkers or malevolent skinwalkers?
It depends on the region and the animal in question. As I said, it's the medicine man or the shaman, has their own individual totem. Now, oftentimes they work with multiple ones, but they generally recognize that they have one that's either innate by birth or that, chose them or that they chose through, meditation and spiritual journey. But, I think the difference is that the malevolent ones are more common in the Southwest and with predators. And in the Northeast, you have more of, I guess, a docile relationship with it, which is also interesting to note because the Plains tribes and the Uto-Aztecan, Pueblo kind of tribes, they're generally more warlike and with a harsher outlook on life than the forest-dwelling tribes of the Northeast.
Now, one last interjection. It's going to be something that we're going to be talking about later on in this episode. But a lot of people, when they hear the word skinwalker, think about, the stories of somebody goes into the woods and they hear repetitions of voices that were going on earlier. And, maybe somebody comes back, but they're completely not acting like themselves. There's the smell of rotten flesh, etc.
Yeah,
now, that's not actually a skinwalker, is it?
No. The common mistake is, people on the internet, reliable sources always, has termed it that, because, they change skins, it's kind of just a basic definition. They weren't really meant to allude to the Native American thing. And that's why, the term fleshgait, someone says, oh, what's a fleshgait? And it's basically just, a synonym of skinwalker because there's not really a set term for what it is. And the interesting thing is you have, legends of these cryptids like all over the planet. I mean, in Australia and Canada and Europe and Siberia, in the Middle East and all over North America. So it's a global phenomenon, which makes me think it's not, just some kind of weird animal, which some people theorize. There's a lot of different theories on what they actually are and where they come from.
Yeah,
But,
I just wanted to get the distinction out of the way before we
Yeah.
go too deep into skinwalkers.
When I say skinwalker, I'm referring to the Native Americans and, their medicine men. Fleshgait, I'm referring to the ghoulish, golem-looking cannibals that are, frankly, very creepy and that I had a disturbing encounter with myself.
Ooh,
Oh.
that sounds like
We'll
there's a
have to
story.
get to that too.
Oh, there's
that's later.
story. Yeah, I'll get into that later.
Okay. So skinwalkers. We're starting with.
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, let's do that. So these are Native American shape-shifting natives.
Yeah, generally they're going to be medicine men, shaman, maybe tribal elders, or maybe braves, warriors in some cases. There's a lot of at least in oral folklore, there's a lot of stories of brave, for some reason has vengeance or the desire to just wreck shit in war. So he goes and consults some cryptic exiled medicine person that teaches them to shapeshift, and then they go do that. And then, the moral of the story is that they get temporary glory because, they won some great victory for their tribe. But then, like their spirit belongs to the witch or whatever that,
Sold their soul, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a very similar to a Faustinian type of bargain in a lot of cases. I have a coworker that's she's full on Apache. And because there's a reservation relatively nearby, I had asked her if her grandparents or anything had any stories or anything like that. And she didn't really have anything beyond kind of the general, Southwest mythology regarding them. But it was still kind of cool to hear it from a native themselves rather than just, on the internet.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that no matter what tradition you're coming from or what culture you're coming from, there's almost always this these prevailing stories and legends that there are things out there that will give you power in exchange for, the core of what makes you you.
Well, the interesting thing, if you're going to look at it from a Judeo-Christian perspective, is that a lot of the early missionaries and explorers and conquistadors, be they Spanish and Latin America or French or English and North America, is they all kind of equate a lot of Native American spirituality with devil worship and evil and demons and stuff. And I remember as a kid reading that, and I thought, oh, that's just silly. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's demonic. But then, as I got older and really kind of studied their mythology and stuff, it's, kind of more akin to classical stuff, reading the old Greek demon just means kind of a spirit. It's not necessarily good or bad. It's just kind of there. It's a supernatural entity. And you can work with it or, it can harm you. It can help you. It's just like a person with agency, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
an interesting note, just to kind of go on the global origin of stuff, and this is a theory that when I first read it, it kind of sent a chill down my spine, is that and you can see it in horror movies or in the general concept of a ghoul or a boogeyman, is that mankind, whether you're in Africa or the Aborigines or Scandinavia, or no matter where you go, no matter how primitive or advanced you get, mankind has an innate fear of pale skin, dark eyes, long, gangly, spindly limbs. The whole Slender Man, exaggerated Gollum figure is universally feared and nightmarish. And I remember reading a post that it was someone suggesting,
it's a genetic memory.
Yeah,
it's instinctual.
What if, when our ancestors were huddling around fires and mammoth skins, what if there were other, sapient or hominid-esque creatures that, left behind, residual PTSD almost, let's say.
Generational PTSD.
Yeah, I mean,
much like when my grandparents were holocausted. That's why I have problems.
Oh, it's in your blood.
Right.
That's really interesting. I've heard the same thing, and people connected that to gray style aliens.
I'm
Not really
hesitant
related
to
to
do
this.
that just because it's a massive can of worms. But yeah, I would say it's looking into that.
I'm just gonna say there's some pretty spoopy fucking shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm someone who loves nature, and I've literally been wandering around, oftentimes by myself or with a dog, in, the mountains and deserts of the American Southwest since I was a kid. And even now I'm familiar with it. I love nature. I know a lot about it. And it's just still, there's this unnerving fear in the back of my mind. Or not fear quite, but it's more just like tension or, caution.
Unease.
Like I'm in an alien environment.
I think it's one of those things where if you get into some place that's away from any sort of urbanization, someplace untamed, you get that definitive feeling of this place is far older than you are. And by the time you are dust in the ground, this place will still be here. And this place is watching you.
There are places in Southern California, like some of the Morongo Indians and stuff, who believe that because Southern California has become such an urban cosmopolitan area, that, a lot of the, the spirits, the native spirits of the land, are pushed away almost by this encroaching civilization. So now, like the San Gabriel Mountains or the San Jacinto Mountains, the Mojave Desert, they all have this very haunting feel to them. And I mean, if you're there, you can feel it. I don't know if any of you have been there, but
I actually have a story from a friend. He was screwing around in the out in the Mojave. And,
I'm very familiar with it. So
he went out to, maybe you've seen something like this, but he went out and he was just out, couple miles away from civilization, just going out so he could shoot, have some fun, target practice, just burn through some ammo. And he's walking through this canyon and he gets unsettled and he looks up and there's a fucking silhouette, almost like a figure. And he, tries shouting at it. Nothing moves. And he figures, maybe something's just projecting and, maybe I'm just imagining things. So he keeps going down this canyon, starts getting more and more unsettled, looks back up, and there's just vague silhouette figures, sort of like not exactly shadow people, but just blurred outlines looking down on him on both sides of the canyon. And he said he just freaked out. He threw his gun up, popped off a couple of shots just as a warning, and then just hauled ass, got the fuck out of there, jumped in his car, and sped away.
And you said this was in the Mojave, right?
Yeah.
Nearby, the Mojave is pretty much the rain shadow for the San Gabriel in a lot of ways. In 2014, I was living with my uncle in the San Bernardino Mountains, and a lot of times I would take my dog out and I'd just walk in the woods, off the leash, because it was familiar and relatively safe. I didn't pay it any mind. But a lot of times especially around twilight, I would almost see the kind of wisps like that, and I would just chalk it up to being my mind. But my aunt Kim, she was always very jumpy, and she insisted that the mountains were very haunted, and that she also said she saw things like that. But then me and my uncle laughed about it because she's also notoriously spiritual in quotes, so never took it very seriously. So I think that's interesting that you note that. And there's a lot of people too that like hikers and stuff that go up into the San Gorgonio Pass that they say that when they're hiking, they can see figures, fleetingly on the rock surface, or they hear footsteps behind them even though there's no one there. And they can hear, voices on the wind, but then when they don't see anyone, they just think, oh, it's just the wind. So, very creepy in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. It sounds like
a lot of times too, the people giving these accounts, they're experienced climbers or hikers, so it's not, some Johnny fuck nugget that's out oh, I hear voices, man. It's
right.
These are experienced professional people that are hearing something that's not right, that they've never, and that makes it even more unnerving, I think.
Oh, it would totally be more disturbing. Yeah, especially if you're you're used to being out in that kind of environment, and now all of a sudden.
So, did you want me to keep going with the skinwalker thing? Or?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Continue with the skinwalkers.
So, at least from what I know, referring to the southwestern tribes, and this is, I guess, Panapacharia, so Arizona, New Mexico, southwest Colorado, and Utah. Skinwalkers have a reputation more for being like tricksters rather than straight up malevolent. They very easily become malevolent because a lot of their, you know, tricks are kind of macabre, like, haha, your family's dead. But, you know, they're not so much downright.
How is that a
like,
trick? That's not funny.
Well,
they got pranked.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
it's like
pranked on a major scale, yeah.
Or a lot of times it's like the prank is that the bad end of the deal, like, kind of did it to themselves, either through their own greed or their own ambition or their own stupidity, but they still ultimately end up getting tricked in a very macabre way. Like the figure of Coyote, he's kind of more of a positive note because, you know, he is like a trickster, creator, god kind of figure. But wolves in particular, by the like Apache peoples, they have this weird relationship in that they're kind of respected as hunters, but they're also reviled in every other sense of the way. And so a lot of the skinwalker, you know, werewolf equation comes from the Southwest and the Western, you know, mountain tribes, because, you know, they associate for, you know, prey, and it's the primary danger to their children and their villages. Aside from other natives, of course. In the Northeast, you have much more benevolent ones, like some of the Algonquin speaking peoples, like in the Great Lakes, like by Lake Huron. They have stories of skinwalkers that like become moose or, you know, elk that, you know, and somehow this assists them in a ritual to, you know, call for rain or to make sure that, you know, the game is plentiful in the next season and things like that, which in a way mirrors a lot of primitive European stuff where, you know, they kind of had similar nature rites to encourage fertility or a good hunt or that sort of thing. So again, it goes back to them being heavily correlated with, you know, the medicine men, the shaman, and the elders of the civilization, the society.
Okay.
That makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
So,
for example, like or go ahead.
Well, no. Okay, so skinwalkers aren't. So these are people that transform into animals.
Yeah, and the methods of doing that vary depending on the intention and the creature in question. Like a lot of stories, again, that span both North America and Europe, say like if you drink water out of the footprint of the animal that you want to turn into, that assists in the ritual. Another thing that spans the Atlantic is that the full moon. Now, it's not really clear whether it's necessary for a full moon to transform or if it just makes it easier or something. I would think, and this is just my own personal theory, I would think that, you know, because of the way that old rituals and whatnot work and with, you know, cosmological alignments and such, that it would be like a part of the ritual that, you know, when the full moon is up in the sky, that's when it's easiest or that's when the ritual is at its most powerful. But generally speaking, there's a lot of wearing skins or body parts of the animal in question, which I'll get to later, but is another interesting connection to the Fleshgait. But yeah, they wear the skins of whatever is in question. They imitate it, you know, in mannerism, in vocalization, and all sorts of behaviors and stuff. And they a lot of times drink like ritual salves or, you know, potions, more or less, you know, special brews. And so, you know, a lot of modern academics are going to be like, oh, well, they were just, you know,
Getting high.
Yeah, they just, you know, tripped themselves out in their teepees or whatever.
Yeah, they were just doing.
I think it's a real disservice to me. I'm not going to go, you know, shill like, oh, Native Americans were a noble people, but it's really doing them a disservice to just be like, oh, they're just getting high.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they would craft an entire like cultural way of life off of getting high. But I mean, maybe they would, but I don't think so.
Well, that's what they're doing now.
Right, but now there's like technology and like ease of living.
Yeah, now they can do that because, you know, death isn't the alternative.
I mean, someday I will be, but
oh, well, I didn't mean you, friend.
Well, like the thing is, whenever anybody says something like that, I got to make a joke about it.
Yeah.
Aren't jokes funny though?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So, Fleshgaits and skinwalkers are basically the same thing.
No.
Okay.
They are
good.
completely different.
Explain the
A
difference.
skinwalker.
Go ahead and explain. the
Skinwalker is pretty much going to be in North America. You're dealing with Native Americans, be they Canadian or Native like America, USA, or Mexico. You're dealing with Native Americans.
Now, Hydro, as a Canuckuk, you guys have some legends about skinwalkers amongst the indigenous peoples up there, don't y'all?
Oh yeah, we certainly do. Thing is there's a lot more of them up here relative to population down there, right? So you hear a lot more stuff. You see a lot more, well, basically natives too, and because of that mingling, sometimes you'll hear a few things. So yeah, what do you want to know? I'm not an expert, but hey.
Just what are some of the traditions? What are the stories you've heard regarding skinwalkers?
Well, it's a big part of their culture up there, obviously. Up here, rather. Being in touch with nature, having a lot in common with animals. It's a very common thing for a native to have a animal as sort of a spirit thing. Like they
a totem.
They equate that to their spirit in a lot of ways. So, really, in a lot of ways, that's where that comes from too, and that's I think that's had a big effect on the development of that and the reality of it, even. Yeah.
Now, would you say that would you say that they tend to identify more with the predator species or with the prey species? I mean, you take a look at the style of living that is needed to survive up in the frozen north, something like that, and I would think that maybe you might see more identification both spiritually and otherwise with some of the more not necessarily prey species, but the ones that plan ahead, store food, etc.
The trickster ones. The clever ones. Yeah, well, really, I'd say it depends on the person, the tribe. I know that there are tribes. The one closest to me identifies with eagles. I know of ones that identify with turtles. I don't know if Jeb Bush knows about those.
You Canadians and your tribes are not allowed to appropriate the eagle. That's our thing.
Yeah, fuck off, Leaf.
I know other ones that are fond of bears and moose. And I am not joking. There's ones that.
So if a moose skinwalker is drunk and walking across the road and he gets hit by a car, will he destroy the car?
Well, actually, probably. If you know anything about moose, they are the most dangerous animal on the entire North American continent. They will fucking kill you.
Oh, dude, I've seen. So
if you see a skinwalker and it's, say, a bear, don't be scared. Just act like it's a normal bear. But if you see a moose skinwalker, run your fucking ass out of there. Oh no! Like, seriously, I've heard of like, from people who know people, because I don't talk to natives a ton, even though I've obviously talked to some.
Wait, so we're not just memeing here. Moose skinwalkers is a real thing.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying that I've seen that.
Well, no, I know,
obviously,
but there are actual stories about this.
Oh, yes. I don't have any exact ones on me, obviously, but I've certainly heard people talking about it. Fucking here when I talk to tourists, people from here about native folk stories. It's an occurrence, there's even sacred places in the mountains, the Rockies out here, that because they're scared of them. So hey, take from that what.
Well, the Rockies and are kind of a hot spot for these sorts of cryptids in general, be they the native skinwalker or a fleshgait or the quote unquote goat man. Particularly the mid Rockies and like Nevada and stuff. I've noticed a lot of stories coming out of specifically the Ruby Valley in like north central, northeast Nevada. It's very remote, very dry, very wild.
I was about to use that term. I think, these locations tend to be some of the only wild places left. Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to say that, I'm not even going to go that fucking, oh, this is where technology isn't there. So there's no way to disprove these things. I think that anything that wants to be left alone for whatever reason is gonna, avoid people, and they're gonna go to these wild places.
Outside of North America, the stories out of Australia, it's always, in the outback or, something like that it's encountered, not, outside of Sydney or anything like that.
To be fair, Hazzard, Bill's house is a pretty wild place from what I've heard, so watch yourself. It's a fact.
You get 100, 120 cryptids, you'll have 2 or 3 disproved by the next day.
That's this entire show, we got to find the real ones. We got to find the people who know about the real ones.
I will personally vouch for the Fleshgait.
Oh yeah, I've heard. I've seen Zev type this story before, and it sent chills up my fucking spine.
I hate to sound like a wuss, but honestly, it's a story that when I do tell it, it kind of sends a chill up my spine and almost makes my eyes tear up a bit, because just like the recollection of it is just so primordially horrifying. It almost makes you feel like a child.
I don't think anybody could really criticize you for like getting kind of freaked out about that, because it's a fucking Fleshgait, my nigga. Like,
yeah, that's true. And I mean, yeah, I'll get into it later. But
like, it was dealing with supernatural crazy shit,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of spooky things. I mean, I think. What do you think, guys? Do you think we should actually do what we were talking about doing, and everybody get ready for TRS-omania a couple days earlier? Go to some of the haunted sites around Texas, like Galveston. Fucking do some investigations.
I've been in Galveston before, and absolutely, that city's haunted as fuck.
Dude, I want to just because I want to like be down there and hang out with people though.
As a side note, another city that just reeks of paranormal is Charleston. Like, no matter where you go, that's like every street of that city just bleeds spook.
Charleston in where?
South Carolina. Sorry.
Okay. I mean, I figure everybody shows up for TRS-omania a couple days early. We're not that far. We're not going to be that far from fucking Galveston. It'd be
we'll go down there.
Gonna kidnap Slug, leave him out in there.
Let's leave talk of this meta. Let's leave talk of this meta, like what we're gonna do later stuff for later, not a show.
Yeah. I'm just telling people to expect some live paranormal investigation from the Paranormies.
Hardcore memeing,
bro. We can film it, including your heavy breathing and all.
Shit. All right, so what else do we have about Fleshgaits? Or skinwalkers?
We haven't really even gotten it. All right. I really got nothing except for, the whole religious, spiritual connection, the kind of the fact that the American psyche takes that in and, kind of morphs it into horror, when originally it could be horror, it could be not. It's just folklore, more or less, not good or bad.
Yeah, it could be something malevolent. It could be something benevolent. I mean, you just don't know. The thing is, skinwalkers at the end of the day, they're unlike some of the other things like Fleshgaits or Wendigos. Even a vengeful skinwalker is still a person, right?
Right. Vengeful skinwalkers are actually generally very benevolent, because it means that they're using their powers, their abilities to pursue some kind of moral standard or something, rather than just, personal enricement or ambition.
Yeah, believe me, Skinwalker better than Wendigo for sure. Trust me.
Wendigos are just nasty.
No, we'll get into that later, of course.
Do we want to go into Wendigos next or Fleshgaits?
I would suggest Wendigos because it's kind of the bridge between the Fleshgait and the Native American. Because there's a lot of similarities between the Wendigo and the Fleshgait, but
really, it is kind of a bridge, because if it's the way I understand it, didn't Wendigos used to be people?
Not always. There are versions of the story where it's either a person that, due to trauma or illness or being trapped in a winter situation, they resort to cannibalism or some other really foul, wicked deed. And then, in participating in that, they kind of corrupt themselves. And then, like their own corruption manifests in that they morph into this, gangly, pale-skinned, long-clawed, creature. Alternatively, there are some stories...
Hey, didn't say long nose.
And also these eat people, not their shekels, or their foreskins. They eat the whole thing.
Or their children's stem cells.
So...
However, guys, I think we're coming up on how long have we been recording for? About an hour?
I think it's like half an hour because your ass took forever.
Oosh, 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 oosh.
And I think Johnny died.
Yeah. Fuck it. Let's. Why don't we go ahead and take a small break here, and I'm gonna call that nigga Johnny.
All right, everybody, we're back. We're still talking about skinwalkers and fleshgaits and wendigos and all kinds of things that change and go bump in the night. I am still Johnny Monoxide with Hazzard, McRee, Adam, Haidt. We're with Death and Zev. What's happening, guys?
Hey, you forgot me again.
And
You're a leaf, you're not a person.
God damn it! I'm sorry, Hydro.
This is going to become a running TRS meme. Everybody just forgets Hydro.
Well, no, we're just going to forget
Hydro, the Canadians.
Yeah,
you're not memorable enough to be a meme.
All right.
Okay, buddy.
We're back.
I'm just going to go jump off a rocky mountain now, okay?
Don't you have to ask for permission from?
No, he's got to say
first
sorry.
Make sure you're
He's
paid up
he's
on
got to
your
apologize while he's doing it.
Sorry, eh?
All right. So
this means more cannibalism.
we did skinwalkers in the first hour. We're gonna get into Wendigos and Fleshgaits. So, what is a Wendigo?
A Wendigo is either a person that succumbs to madness, or Wendigo state of mind, and that they consume people in cannibalism, or they do other horrific deeds that makes the ugliness and the wickedness of their soul manifest, and that they transform into a spindly golem on steroids, cannibalistic ghoul type creature. Or alternatively, it's a person who becomes possessed by a bad spirit, and then the spirit through this person eats people, kills families, all that sorts of fun, bright stuff.
Sounds like really nasty things, though.
Isn't the Wendigo myth unusual? Because even there are stories, myths about people that resorted to cannibalism just to survive, like cannibalized the flesh of their family that had already died. And became Wendigos still. Yeah,
there's a lot of them are actually recorded, like they're real cases, that went before a judge and stuff. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but it was in like the 1880s in Canada. An Indian guy was trapped in like a cabin in winter with his wife and like their 4 kids, and his oldest son died. So they carved him up and ate him, or at least the man did. And then I guess like the natives say, he had Wendigo fever or whatever they call it, because he ended up killing his wife and his other kids and eating them too. And then like after the blizzard, was over, he came to his senses sort of, and then he went and he confessed and they executed him. But it's not a unique story. I mean, I wouldn't say common, but they're not unheard of in the early days.
There are a fair number of examples.
Yeah. It's something that, and that's where, skeptics will say, it's, a medical condition, it's psychosis of some sort. I mean, yeah, it very well could be, but to such a cultural degree, it's more than that, I would say. But yeah, generally a Wendigo is described as being very bestial, and that they're larger than people. They're, as I said, they're like kind of like Gollum on steroids, and that their limbs are long and gangly. They generally have long, spindly fingers that are clawed. They have, rows of sharp teeth, black eyes, like, a porcelain doll. They're generally bald and, like a very pasty, fleshy color. Hairless more often than not. Sometimes they're depicted with like horns or antlers or, claws and manges of fur. A lot of times I think it depends on the region you're talking about, but they're generally, a good coverall would be to say that they're ghoulish in appearance.
Whoosh. Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, they sound they sound really frightening.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because again, crossing the Atlantic, you have the Wendigo, but then in Europe, and you have the ghoul that comes from Saudi Arabian legend, which is essentially a subterranean cavern dwelling monster that eats people. And they're very much. I think that the first reference to reach Europe of those kinds of things was in the Arabian Nights, and it was a story. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Aladdin actually, or something that had encountered one of them on one of their adventures, and it was seen in a graveyard, pulling bodies up and like eating them. So again, skeptics will be like, "Oh, that was just a grave robber, cannibal, weirdo person." Well, either way, if there's so many of them to an extent that people feel the need to write them down and talk about it, it probably more significant than just some whimsical creep.
I'm pretty sure if they were trying to fuckery the corpse, they were a salon editor.
Yeah, these ghouls sound like fucking assholes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're there to eat people and shit them out, I guess.
Oh, he's my favorite. He's my favorite part of the show.
That's getting edited out.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you not be a fag Canadian, or is it just like a?
Okay, all right. Let's get back.
I mean, it really was Hazzard's fault for.
Stop it.
Moving on. The thing with Wendigos is
anyway. Yeah, hold on. Ian, hang on a second. Start over with the thing about Wendigos.
Oh, okay. The thing about them is a lot of times they're kind of a cautionary tale against social taboos. It's like, or some Wendigos, they're the product of incest, and the person, when they find out that their parents are related, they go mad and they kill someone and eat them or whatever. But so it's like a result of trauma or wicked deeds that people become these monstrosities. But it's to enforce a social taboo. Incest is bad, cannibalism is bad. No matter what, situation or bad thing, you don't resort to extreme measures, because if you do, it's not going to be worth staying alive or whatever, because you're just going to be cursed. You're going to be damned, to be a monster.
Right.
Well, and if you want a never-ending supply of Wendigo stories, just search K Skinwalker, and there you go. You will have a never-ending supply of them.
Yeah, but I mean, it's on K, so pound of salt.
Yeah, of course. It's a good point, but hey, entertainment.
So,
and also,
Hydro, you're up there in
Cuckland.
What's the name of that place? Canada. Yeah.
Cuckadia.
Cuckadia. And you guys have these things, these Wendigos up there, right?
Well, that is a part of the mythology of the native people up here, just as it is down there. From what I know, it's far more prevalent out here in the west as opposed to out east, but it's still out there. It's also very common, comparatively. It's even more common in the American Southwest, but going back to Canada, obviously.
Wait, Windigo's in the American Southwest.
Oh, yes, Nevada.
No, we don't really have those.
Really? Okay.
No, the Windigo is like a Great Plains, Great Lakes, central Canada kind of thing.
Really? I've been misinformed in that case. It's a big thing up here.
We're having a cryptid fight.
Cryptid fight!
Oh!
Is that like a cripple fight?
Level 7
except with more fangs?
From what I know, it's a pretty big thing. It's actually not that big up north, surprisingly. Inuits don't have a huge tradition with that. They have their own taboos to prevent that. But I do hear stories. They force you to be educated on the native folklore here if you're a young Canadian going through the education system. And because of that, I was constantly fed stories from their culture my entire life. Don't ask me to recall them, though. That's a whole nother story.
Interesting. So,
it is.
In Canada, you guys also have the hold on. So, there's no Wendigos in the Southwest. Zev, is what you're saying?
No, they wouldn't be lumped in with the same group of thing, because in the Southwest, the taboos aren't going to have to do the same thing that they would be. Okay. Winter time, hunter-gatherer people. Yeah. The taboos here more probably, granted, you have your natural, incest and cannibalist taboos, but it's less, about harming the survival as a group and more about, I think, personal conduct, I would say. The monster or, bestial thing that I think, would be best to kind of correspond to the Wendigo.
Common element.
I actually forget the name of them off the top of my head, and even if I had it in front of me, I don't think I could pronounce it. But they're supposedly creations of Elder Brother, and Elder Brother is kind of this creative god, but he's also in some ways like, I created mankind, but I also created monsters that, rip their faces.
Hold up, would that be Nagaloshi?
That sounds extremely familiar. So, is it something Apache or Pueblo related?
Yep.
Or Navajo? Yeah, then that's probably...
And that's not the correct pronunciation, and I know it's not the correct pronunciation,
I don't hold it against
and I'm
you.
not fucking saying the correct one.
Yeah, you don't want to call it down on you, bro.
Yeah. I know that's close enough to what it's actually supposed to be called to where people will recognize it. But
Well, it's said that they can hear you no matter where you are. That's something that the coworker I was talking about. She was joking that her family goes and they hunt, but they, when they hunt, they have like, special calls for, like birds and stuff. But they also have, their legends. And when I asked her about it, this is what she said, is that they have certain words or certain sounds that they won't make because they don't want to attract attention. And I think that's interesting in a certain way that, 70-year-old Apache men that live in the current year still adhere to those kinds of things, even though for all other intents and purposes, they're completely modern.
There's a very Lovecraftian element to it, certainly. I for example,
Juan Romero was a good example.
I actually know for a fact, and this is true, that some Native American cultures don't like you mentioning their specific name for a Wendigo at nighttime because they believe that can summon it.
Yep, exactly. Because the Wendigos are not necessarily corporeal in the sense that we think of them like they are, and that they can interact with the physical world and literally, kill you and eat you. But they're also kind of mystic in the sense that a lot of times they're represented by the wind, but like in a bad way, like like a sudden onrush of wind.
It's almost like a poltergeist compared to a ghost.
Yeah.
Well, you have some of these Wendigos that are people who, violated some ultimate taboo and were just consumed by that, and then you have others that have been possessed by something. Yeah. And what they're worried about is the Wendigo spirits coming to claim another.
Well, I think this is too where American folklore element plays into it. Like Stephen King books, even though he's a cuck, they're a great example of how the Native American burial ground is kind of cemented in the American consciousness that it's bad stuff to be avoided, and that if you fuck around with Native American rituals like a fool blundering about in a china shop, you're gonna bring some misfortune on yourself.
Well, it's actually
a kind of a Wendigo story, and that avoid taboo and being a dick. Otherwise, you're gonna end up screwed.
Funny enough, H.P. Lovecraft. I just looked this up because I'm familiar with his works, and it sounded familiar. He wrote a story, I believe, called he wrote a story actually about the Wendigo. And in the story, it's called Ithqua, and it's one of the old ones actually. Give that a read. It's from his short story Ithaqua, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So yeah, check that out. H.P. Lovecraft. H.P.
Lovecraft would be somebody to do an entire episode on, because some of the stuff that he wrote about, he
definitely
believed in.
There's if you go into Hayden Crowley and the coincidences between the weird, creepy gods they talked about, it's scary actually.
Well, the thing is, I know for certain that Nyarlathotep, the beast with 1,000 faces,
Black Pharaoh, yeah.
Lovecraft believed in that. He believed that there was something out there
towards the end of his
and
life,
spreading chaos.
He had, just piles of him scribbling about, these mad gods, and their eldritch
He became
horrors.
Absolutely terrified to the point where, before the pneumonia took him, he would not leave his house.
It's interesting, too, because you can see it reflect in a lot of his stories where he, his narrator is kind of mentally unstable because they're so terrified. But I think we're going on a tangent a bit with the Lovecraft thing.
Well, I can read, but before we go off, I'll just read the description quickly, if that's all right, because I think it's good to get a mental image of a Wendigo if you haven't already searched that up. It appears as a horrifying giant with a roughly human shape and glowing red eyes. And it's been reported as far north as the Arctic to subarctic when the Native Americans first encountered them. That's straight from Wikipedia.
Yeah, Jesus, man. But yeah, we definitely need to do an entire episode on H.P. Lovecraft, because, my God, the man was a prolific writer.
At the Mountain of Madness.
I have all the complete works of him, yeah.
So, do you have more stuff on Wendigos, or are you ready to transition into Fleshgait?
I was going to get into how they relate to Fleshgaits, because there's a lot of similarity and overlap. I mentioned it earlier. There's the Ruby Valley in Nevada. You can look it up. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on there. Apparently, the military used to do a fair amount of testing, or their planes used to fly over it quite a bit, on training missions or something. I think it's getting a bit into UFO territory, so I don't want to go on that road because I don't think that's the case. But an example of a story would be a guy in the Ruby Mountains. He's a native. Father was a sheriff or like that, sheriff's deputy. So he's local, knows the area. He's not some tourist that's going to be skittish. And so he goes up into the mountains, takes his he's just like, I'm a redneck. I like having my gun. I like to shoot shit. So he goes up and the old roads, because in a lot of the West, it had a boom economy in history, mining towns, that spring up and last for a year while they mine out the silver. And then, it closes down and becomes a ghost town. That's why you have so many that's scattered around the desert in these lonely valleys. So, the guy says he likes to explore those kinds of places because, he's just kind of a local history buff. So he's going up one of these, roads. It's lonely, but it's not creepy or nothing. So as he's going up, he notices that in the middle of the road, kind of by the turnoff to where it goes into the actual, mining camp part, there's a tree about, 7 meters tall, and it's bent. It's broken at the mid, but it's not like it actually broke from a storm or anything. It's like a clean cut, but then it's also split down the middle in kind of a Y shape that almost looks very kind of ritualistic, like somebody did it on purpose very exactly. And so he thinks, people having fun or being weird, whatever. So he goes up into the camp itself, and he sees the typical stuff he's used to, the old mining equipment, abandoned shacks and whatnot. And he says that after he passes, that he just feels this profound sense of something's wrong and that he's being watched. He doesn't see anything weird, and he's been doing this kind of stuff for years, so it's nothing to it. But he feels apprehensive. But then his curiosity gets the better of him. He sees this mining cabin that's intact. He goes up to investigate because it's kind of an oddity in that it looks very pristine. So he goes up. Some of the windows are broken, some of the curtains are moth-eaten and shabby, and it's run down. But the weird thing is that the bed's made. There's food on the table. It looks like the people literally just kind of got up and left, just abandoning it mid living there. So this is really his sense of foreboding and anxiety is increasing. Then he goes outside and he sees kind of a shadowy figure in the tree line some yards to his southwest. And he doesn't think much of it. It's probably a critter or something. So being the redneck that likes to shoot stuff, he just fires a round off towards it. Thinks if it's an animal, scare it away. Then he goes on, but then he shriek and again he's familiar with old mines, and he describes it as the sound of wind whooshing through a mine very rapidly. And so he thinks, there's another entrance to the mine. It's just the air pressure equivalating or whatever. But then he realizes that the wind that he feels is hot, and mines are generally not hot. They have a constant cooler temperature.
Right, it's like everything underground.
Yeah, exactly. So he's kind of why the hell would it be hot? It's an abandoned mine shaft. So he goes up to explore, thinking, maybe there's something wrong, like some piece of mining equipment's defaulting or something. And he gets up there and he sees, as he's going up, he hears, sounds again, but it almost sounds like it's a person's voice, like they're calling out to him. Oh, geez. And they're calling out to him. And so he thinks, maybe there's someone else that's, into this kind of thing up here with me. Looks around, doesn't see nothing. But when he looks back towards his truck, which he left towards where the tree was, he thinks he sees a figure kind of squatting on the tree itself, like it's sitting there looking at him. And he wants to describe it as humanoid in shape generally. But, thinks, that's stupid. It's probably, a coyote or something sitting there watching me. So he keeps on going.
This guy is failing all of the horror movie flags. Jesus Christ, I've got.
He's actually not. I mean, the way he described it, he knows it's red flag. He's got his gun at the ready, but he's concerned that it's punks that are gonna do some arson or something.
Right, you're still dealing with the rational world. I mean, it's hard to really get your.
Again, this is a native. He's a local. This he's not going to be intimidated by the mountain at night. So he gets up towards the entrance, and as he gets to the entrance, he sees, like I described, a long, gangly humanoid emerge from the mine shaft. But and this is the thing that was weird for me, is he describes its face as looking like kind of like a badger. That was really the only instance I had heard of that description. But he described it as looking like a ghoulish figure with the face of a badger, and it appeared to see him, and then it let out this ear-splitting shriek, and that's a commonality amongst the collective kind of thing. It lets out this ear-splitting shriek, and he starts shooting at it, because he's scared shitless at this point. And so he's pumping rounds into it, and it's hurting it, or he thinks it is, because it's screeching louder and louder. And he's like kind of jogging backwards as he's shooting at it, because it doesn't seem to be fucking dying. Back, and he gets closer to the tree, that weird tree that is in the back of his mind. He sees rustling in the tree line by where he shot before, and he hears the same shrieking, like there's a pack of them. And so he's thinking, I don't know if these are animals or what the fuck, but I'm getting out of here. So he like sprints back to his truck. He runs so hard that his backpack falls off with his food in it. He just doesn't give a shit and keeps going.
That's another commonality of a lot of these kind of stories is people lose their shit when they're running.
Well, in his case, it's just kind of it's not an important part. It's just him saying, I was hauling ass, and I don't care that I left my stuff behind.
It's still an interesting point, I think, though.
Yeah, there's actually a point to make of that. I'll get later. So he gets back in his truck and he starts driving, and he's out of ammo, so he's scared shitless. And as he's driving down the mountain road back towards the highway that'll take him back to town, he sees all these creatures, in the tree line racing by, watching him, shrieking. And he sees the one that he figures was in the mine shaft, and it's perched on the tree, the fucked up tree, and it's watching him. Just, watching him while the other ones are chasing him. So he gets back down, safe and relatively sound, goes home, and his dad's a sheriff's deputy. So he's like, Dad, some crazy stuff up at the mine on, whatever mountain pass it is. And his dad, just gets very cross with him and says, don't go there ever again. And this is also someone that's 20 or something, like a neat kind of. And his dad just tells him, don't go back up there. It's not safe. And then apparently never mentions it again. So a lot of people that have read that story, they think it's got something to do with military testing. I don't think that's the case. I think it's something far different. But yeah, that's the kind of the Ruby Valley. If you want to look at that, it's kind of a hot spot for them. There's other stories, and this one is out of Australia, and this is an example of them mimicking stuff. Because the basic description of a fleshgait, like I said, it's that ghoulish creature, but there's commonalities to them. They're generally in the wilderness, be it in the woods, in the mountains, in the desert, in the Australian outback. And they're humanoid enough that they can kind of fool people far away. And a really creepy thing is that they mimic people. They in a way that birds do, kind of. A lot of stories describe it as, they hear human speech, and it sounds normal, but there's just something off about it. Like it's forced. Like it's someone trying very hard to communicate.
It's unnatural.
Doing it. Yeah, they're
like
doing
the
it very
timing.
hard.
The timing of it is off.
Yeah, like people will say and also too, they only can communicate in short phrases. Or I've got to show you something, something like that.
And then the vowels are off.
We had a creepypasta about an encounter with one of those that was supposed to have actually happened. That Death read for us on our first episode. I believe it was.
Well, also too to note, there are multiple kinds of fleshgaits in terms of their stories of what they do. Some of them just seem kind of bestial and almost like lycanthrope in form, and that they just kind of want to stalk and hunt people. Some of them appear to be very intelligent and that they try to infiltrate, groups of campers or something. Just say that they want to lure you into the woods and kill you and eat you. Others say they kill you and then literally take your fucking skin like you're a suit.
Gross.
I think one of the things that is supposed to be common about stories of them is they smell like blood, burning copper, and fucking frog.
They smell like dry, rotten,
blood, copper, and what?
Stale blood, or they smell like garbage or the sewage.
Like shit, piss, just everything nasty.
They just smell like natural filth, pretty much. Like decay, death, nasty stuff. But yeah, so there's a story out of Australia that is kind of like a good coverall for the skin robbing kind of fleshgait. In that, so the story is this guy and his buddy, they go out camping in the outback, and they've done it a lot. They're both natives, and so they go camping and whatever. And so they're at their campsite, and they're like drinking a few beers, chilling. And the friend says, "Oh, I'm gonna go gather firewood. So you want to come with me?" And the friend's like, "Well, if you need me to, yeah, but otherwise, no, I'm going to chill here." And so the friend's like, "No, that's all right." So the friend leaves, comes back, and then, he's acting weird because, like, the guy is, like, sitting at the fire drinking a beer and, like, looking through his phone. And the friend comes back, but he's just kind of standing, like, outside of the camp, like, the fire, the tents. He's just, like, standing off in the distance, just kind of watching. And so the dude's like, "Yo, what are you doing, bro? Like, why are you being creepy? Just get the fuck over here." And so the friend, like, kind of cautiously walks over, very slowly, almost like, he's drunk or something. And the guy telling the stories, he's like, "Did he go in the bushes and, like, pound a few or what?" But so the friend, and he's looking around the camp like it's, it's new to him.
The first time he's seen it.
Yeah, exactly. And so he sits down and then starts asking a bunch of really basic questions, like, "Oh, Anon, or are you having fun? Or, are you glad to be out here?" Like, fairly innocent, but also just kind of awkward questions, like elevator small talk with a total stranger. And so the thing is that's also throwing the narrator off is that the way that his friend is speaking is very kind of choppy and robotic. Like, again, like it's very forced and unnatural. And so, I'll spare the green text. And, the friend is acting very bizarre all night and seems to not like the fire so much because they keep asking the narrator if they can put it out. And the narrator's like, "No, we need it up in case of animals or something." So they go to bed. The narrator wakes up to his friend sitting by the fire, which he put out with a bucket of water. And he's literally just sitting at it, squatting over it, staring at it. So the narrator's, kind of really unnerved at this point because, ever since the friend went out to look for firewood, they've been acting fucking weird. So the guy says, "Oh, I got a call from my girlfriend. We got to cut this trip short. Sorry, dude. We'll come back next weekend." And so then the friend who had been previously, apathetic and kind of, out of it, gets madder than hell and is, flipping out like, "Oh, what the hell, Anon? We planned this trip for so long, blah, blah, blah." And, like, getting really upset. And so the narrator's just like, "Dude, calm the fuck down. Like, we'll come back." And then so the friend says, "Oh, really? You mean it? We'll come back? Like, you promise?" And the narrator's like, "Yeah, okay." And so then he's like, "Okay, pack up the campsite. Let's get into the car and let's go home." And so he goes and he's going to, take a piss in the woods or whatever. And then he comes across, a small creek, and sticking out of the creek, like a muddy bank, is a stick. And there's a bloody shirt on it. The problem is that it's the shirt that his friend was wearing the day before. So, he sees this and is like, "Oh, shit." Like, okay, maybe he was gathering firewood and he got cut. And instead of, wanting to take his shirt with him, he just, ditched it or whatever. He's trying to rationalize it.
Yeah, what else can you do with that?
Yeah, and he gets back to the campsite, and his friend is packing stuff up, but he's like inspecting stuff, like like a child looking through a stocking, like, "Oh, what's this? What's that?" Like, it's, or like Yoda looking through Luke's campsite in Star Wars. And so the friend is like, "Okay, stop dicking around. Let's get out of here." And leaving, the friend gets really creepy, and he tells the narrator, "We're coming back, right? You promised." And the narrator, who's still very disturbed, is like, yeah, we'll come back. And then so on the drive home, the friend just keeps going on about how they love the wilderness and they really want to go back and they had so much fun. Just really kind of like bizarre, amiable desires to return to the woods. And this is another theme for all Fleshgaits, is that they want people to come into the woods. They want to lure you there. Yeah, exactly. And the motives are unclear. Again, people disagree, but I'll get to that in a bit. So the guy ends up going home, and then after he drops his friend off, at his house, the friend says, let's go back to the woods. And the guy's like, "Dude, we just got from the woods. What the fuck are you talking about? I said we'd come back later." And then the friend gets super mad and like storms off, like literally into the bushes, like by their town or whatever, and then the dude like never sees him again, ever.
Yeah, he just hears. I think I've read the story. He just fucking hears about him, but he's completely fucking different now.
Right? Yeah. That he doesn't talk to any of his old friends. He doesn't talk to his girlfriend or his family. When people see him, he doesn't speak, or if he does, it's very choppy and awkward. There's also another one out of Australia where it's a native guy and his buddy. They go camping, but it's a much shorter one in that they get out there, and similar story, they're collecting firewood, kind of dicking around, and the guy hears who he thinks is his friend calling out to him saying, "Hey, can you help me? I need your help." And the dude's like, "Okay, with what?" And the voice just repeats, "Hey, can you help me? I need your help." And so it keeps repeating, and he's creeped out by the fact that it's like the same tone of voice, like an audio recording. And again, a lot of these stories say that the voice sounds like an audio recording, and that it's the exact same tone and inflection and pitch. And so, creeped out, he leaves, and then he gets back to the parking lot and finds his friend sitting in the car still. And he's like, "Dude, what did you need my help with?" And the friend's like, "I haven't left. What are you talking about?" And then he realizes that, on the way there, that his friend had said that phrase. And so he kind of connected the dots and realized something was listening to them and was mimicking his friend. And that is, again, another commonality. That they stalk groups of people and listen to them so that they can mimic them. And then they try to isolate one person. "Oh, can you help me? I need your help." A story out of the Mojave Desert, where I'm familiar with, 29 Palms Air Base. This is a story of a Marine who liked to go camping and kind of ranging out in the desert. Is he was hiking on his morning PT, and he saw a bloody, torn up beanie on the ground, and he heard a voice calling for help out of a canyon. And so he looked in, and he sees what appears to be either a young boy or maybe a girl, and they're at the bottom of the canyon and they're calling for help. But he's kind of a nerd because he's like, okay, it's like 5:30 in the morning. Why the fuck is there like a 6-year-old out here by themselves? Do their parents leave them behind or something? And so he goes, he's like, "Okay, I'll go get the Rangers." And then as he's turning and leaving, he hears scraping sounds against the rock. And he hears the voice again, "Oh, can you help me?" And he turns and looks back down to call out, "Yeah, I'll get you help." But there's no one in the canyon anymore. And it's impossible for the child to have crawled out. And so he hears the scraping of claws on rock and all of his danger. And he ends up getting to the ranger station and tells the ranger all about it. And then the ranger, they go to where it is, and they don't see anything or whatever. And so the ranger's like, "Okay, you're just some crazy dude, some druggy, Burning Man weirdo." But the dude was allegedly, a Navy or a Marine guy that was stationed at the local base. But yeah, if it's cool, I would actually like to get into my personal encounter because it's, kind of culminating in that, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's the juicy stuff. I've been waiting for this one.
Yeah.
All right.
It's time.
So, and for prep, this was August 11th, 2011. I will remember exactly the day as long as my hometown is it's kind of suburban, but it backs up into hills. If you wanted to Google Turnbull Canyon in Whittier, California, that is exactly the area I'm talking about. I'm not worried about OPSEC or nothing. So you can get a look at it, see what it's like. So it's very popular in that there's a lot of hiking trails up there. People like to go up there for exercise, take their dogs or whatever. But there's kind of the tourist part of the hills, which is where the trails are. And then there's the deep part where, it goes from maintained trails and whatnot into actual kind of not wilderness, but significantly removed from people. So it was years and years ago, and me and two of my friends who, none of us are crazy or druggies or whatever. We were going up there to celebrate a birthday, and because, not wanting to get caught and being knuckleheaded, teenagers, we would go up there to drink and all that kind of stuff. And so there was a specific kind of hike we would do, and we would go up there we'd leave at 10 o'clock at night and be up there till 3 in the morning. And we'd hike 7 miles up into the hills. And then there was on the tallest point in the hills, we would, go up there to, play cards and, drink or just hang out and listen to music or whatever. Because, you could see all the way from the city, downtown to the coast. It's just a nice view. So that night, it was just kind of spooky, and that there, that just that feeling in the air that stuff's different. And so we got to the top, and it was just like kind of any other trip of that nature. And then at one point we saw a blue light, or as we were sitting up there, like drinking and playing cards, I saw, because there's 2 water towers, and one of them is a helicopter pad. It's pretty fairly used often. And then there's an old water tower from back in the day that's kind of rusted and corroded, has a bunch of gang signs graffitied on it. And I saw a blinking blue light. And at first I thought, it's an automated system or whatever, some kind of thing for maybe a water pump up there or something. But then I noticed no real rhyme or rhythm to it, so it didn't seem automated, because it was just kind of randomly going for different durations and at different times. And eventually there was more than one. There was one that was just kind of blinking in the same spot, and then I noticed there was one kind of adjacent to it that was moving back and forth in a horizontal way. And, I pointed it out to my friends, and they just assumed, oh, it's, other people up here that are drinking or smoking. And then, jokingly, oh, let's go join them. But then, funny enough, we're sitting up there, and off towards the coast, we see a helicopter flying in the direction of, where we are. And keep in mind, there's a helipad nearby. So my friend Victor, he suggests, oh, imagine if that helicopter flew over here and, we had to book it. 5 minutes later, he memed it in reality. It was cruising right up over us, like it was going to land at the helipad. And because, we're all teenagers and we're stupid, we think that, 1 a.m, some helicopter crew is going to drop down and arrest us or something. So we all take off down the this kind of top hill, because you climb up the series of it, and then there's a kind of upper level of it, and this is the highest peak. And so we race down, probably 100 meters or so, down to kind of the bottom of this pinnacle, and we're still up in there deep. And then, after we've ran through the bushes, we realize we're being silly, and, the helicopter's not looking for us or anything like that. So we're like, okay, this is dumb. Let's just let's keep going. And so we go down kind of further in hills where there's a highway that kind of twists through, but it's pretty lonely. And there's a lot of weird stories associated with these hills if you want to look into them, cultist activity, weird stuff like that, hauntings. And so we get down to kind of this crossroads where if you go back and to the left, you go up the hill that we just came down, or if you go back and left and around, it's another road to the helipad. Or if you go to the right, it kind of leads back to the trail where people like to run up or whatever, and takes you down back to the entrance, which is, there's a parking lot and whatnot. Or if you go forward, it goes deeper into the hills where there's that other water tower where, again, I saw the flashing lights earlier. And then beyond that, it branches off in several different directions and goes for miles and miles. So my friend's like, oh, let's just chill here. So, we start drinking and smoking and, hanging out again. But I feel creeped out. They're teasing me and attributing it to, oh, you're just spooked because, we ran down a hill earlier. But it wasn't quite that. It wasn't that same anxiety. It was a sense of dread foreboding. And so we're standing there, and we kind of form a triangle. And I'm facing in the direction that's the water tower that's back deeper into the hills. And my other friends are on my left and on my right. And so as we're standing there just kind of doing our thing, I hear the weirdest, I wouldn't even call it music, but it was just kind of like a series of sounds that was vaguely rhythmic and kind of melodious, but it wasn't music. But it was almost like, again, those kind of phantom processions of musicians that he describes. It was kind of like that. And so I just think, oh shit, there's other people up here. He's like, I don't want to get caught or seen, because there's weird people. You don't know who you're going to run into up there. So I'm kind of, wanting to skedaddle, and my friend's like, no, relax, you're being a bit. And I think because the path behind that goes up to the water tower, it winds up a bit, it corkscrews some. And I thought I saw a figure moving slowly down the path towards us. And I think, okay, I'm being a bitch. My imagination is running wild me right now. And so we're standing there, and I asked them, do you guys hear that weird music? And they're both like, okay, dude, you're not going to scare us. And then randomly, as he's taking a hit of a pipe, my friend Victor just stops, and he goes, no, I hear it too. His eyes are wide, and, surprise and fear. You can see the whites of his eyes, even though it's pitch black out. And then, our other friend is he wants to, be the alpha of the group and insist that it's nothing. And he's also kind of in a position that he can see the trail. Victor's the one that can't see it at all. It's behind him. And so he passes him the lighter. And as soon as he sparks the lighter, his eyes, too, open up wide in fear. And he goes, guys, do you fucking see that? And we look, all of us, at once. And all my hairs are standing up thinking about it. And we, for the longest time, because I only found out what Fleshgaits were relatively recently, we called it the dancing man, because that's really the only apt description we had, is that it was this long, gangly, shadowy figure, and it moved down the hillside, but it didn't quite appear to be walking or striding. It literally looked like it was kind of dancing or shambling down the hill. And then later, years later, when I read all these Fleshgait stories where their movement is described as kind of a shamble, I think back to that, and it makes my, an icy dagger go down my spine. And so this thing is shambling down the hill, and in that moment, any sense of, we're faking this, or, it's all a gag, is gone. And all three of us, drop our stuff. I remember the bottle of Jack Daniels clattering on the ground and spraying all over my pants. And we booked it. I've never ran so fast in my life. We made it down an entire 7-mile hike. And going downhill, it's sketchy as hell, especially in the dark. We made it down in 12 to 15 minutes because we were just hauling ass. And our third friend, he actually ended up, when we got back down into the parking lot, he kind of collapsed out of exhaustion and I think a bit due to anxiety. And so we kind of had to help him home, but luckily, we live nearby. And it was one of those things where we didn't talk about it. We all knew it happened, but no one ever brought it up again for a long time. And then, a year later, it was random, hey, remember that one night we were up there and that weird stuff happened? And yeah. And so it's kind of even to this day, we'll mention it at times, but it's kind of an uncomfortable topic that no one wants to revisit, even though no one was really clear as to
really
why.
Weird reminiscing sort of thing.
Taboo in a way.
Yeah, it's reminiscing about the creepiest thing that ever happened to you. Yeah. And the thing too that really kind of disturbs me about it is just how close it was. And like I said, years later, reading these Fleshgait stories, and and the thing too that really freaks me out is just how true it all is. You see a lot of these stories on X or K or whatever, and you're like, oh, it's a copy pasted, that's why they all sound so similar. But when you really experience it and it matches up line by line with the commonalities in the stories that are generally accepted, it dawns on you that maybe there's something to this. If everyone is experiencing this kind of same phenomenon to the point that all the descriptions are similar, maybe we're all just not crazy and paranoid. Maybe there's something to it. And then, my coworker, her husband, he's a hunter, I guess, and him and his buddy went up hunting in northern Arizona. And they were kind of at a campground, I guess. I don't know if they were using it as a base camp or if they were just on their way back or something. She didn't really go into it. I didn't ask. But she said that they were packing up at night and that her husband was going to take the trash to the camp dumpsters that they have that are metal so that bears can't get into them. He was taking the trash out to one of them, and he saw skittering, and he thought it was a person walking on all fours, and so he was like, what the hell? Is this some tweaker meth head tripping out over here? And he says he saw a person that looked like a naked person on all fours, and that they appeared to climb over the dumpster and the little wall behind it. It turned around and looked at him, and he said it had a long, angular face, white skin, and black eyes, and he didn't really get a good look at it other than that. And he described it as looking like Gollum. And then after it looked at him, it jumped behind the wall where the dumpster was and ran off. And him and his buddy, who are both experienced hunters, were fucking jammed.
Really disturbing. Yeah.
Well, I'm not fucking sleeping tonight.
Yeah, that was probably our best Paranormies story yet.
Holy shit.
Oh, thank you.
It was deep.
Yeah. Wow.
The worst part is death. That, like I said, that creepypasta you recorded for the first episode, that matches up.
I'm going to have to go reread that because I don't remember it very well.
Yeah, well, when I told my coworker my story after she told me about her husband, she was tripping too. That like even stuff that she didn't mention, she's like, "Oh yeah, my husband mentioned that too." Like in retrospect, and she was weirded out by how similar it was. And I was telling her, yeah, that's why I'm really creeped out by the whole thing.
It's like you think, and I mean, you hear in a lot of those stories about how quickly those things can move if they're actually looking to attack you and not just fucking with you for the fun of it.
Yeah, that's the other thing that creeps me out is, in retrospect, I feel like it should have been able to catch us, like if it really wanted to. And then
no, it just decided it was going to fuck with you.
And the creepy thing too about my story with those hills is that a lot of spooky stuff happens up there, but like people go missing, but it's attributed to gang violence or, they get drunk and they stumble off a cliff or, something like that.
Right.
But, I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know, guys. I'm pretty
just
spooked.
that sheer thought of, something decided to fuck with me and evidently it had, gotten its jollies from killing, and that's the reason I'm fucking still alive.
And
because it didn't feel like it.
It's in a relatively urban area. I mean, the area it happened wasn't urban, but it's kind of like, the bridge between two communities.
Right, still an area where people go.
I mean...
Wow.
That's, I don't know if we... need a creepypasta after that.
I know.
Nothing.
We might need
really...
somebody to read us like a bedtime story. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I want to get tucked in and have somebody tell me it's going to be all right, and nobody's going to get me while I'm sleeping.
But
look, you niggers live in different areas, but I'm in a decently fucking rural town, and literally behind my house.
First of all, my 23andMe came back. I am not a nigger. Okay. Just see it.
Okay. Look here, you 0.9% nigger.
0.4.
0.4% nigger. I literally have behind me right now, there is my fucking back door. There is, 20 feet of backyard, a fence, and then there is a canal, and then there is a big ass fucking field that goes on for about 20 fucking miles with woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't go out there.
No, that's where those things live. You don't want to go out there, Hazzard. You know what? I wouldn't go out there.
As someone who loves nature and like hiking in the wilderness and stuff, the encounter really did change my life. And that even if it's an area I'm familiar with, even if I have my dogs with me, I still feel slightly uncomfortable. And that
I've seen what
I was in an area that's got to be my backyard of a suburb of Los Angeles, and I still encounter one of these things.
That's going to make all the hair stand up. Just thinking about it.
Yeah, like I can never go into the wilderness again without, being on alert because you never know.
You've seen what's out there.
Yeah, it's like the old addendum, once you look into the abyss, the land.
Yeah.
And you can't forget them.
Right.
Like here's the difference. We're spooked out. We believe you because we know you. I can't say the same for our listeners, but it's a wholly different thing for you because you've seen it first fucking hand.
Yeah.
All right. I'm freaked out.
How the hell do you kill one of these things?
Yeah. Can we get into that part? How do we get rid of them and how do we kill them?
From what I've heard,
Fleshgaits or Wendigos or
anything.
Yeah, it depends. Holy water is a deterrent, from what I've heard. Actually, holy water, as always. White ash bullets. We talked about that at
now,
the
what
very beginning.
exactly is white ash? Is that like the wood of an ash tree that is white, or is that like
no, it's literally white ashes? Because some are black and gray.
So actual white ashes.
People.
Yeah, I mean, some specific kinds of plants will burn so that the ash is predominantly white. So there's probably a ceremonial or ritualistic aspect there. I don't know the biology of plants well enough, and how they burn.
But putting
I'm gonna say right here and now, the second we figure out exactly how you get the type of white ash you're supposed to need to kill one of these, that's gonna be what we start the episode of Paranormies we record after that with. Hey, here's how you make the white ash after all.
If we can figure it out, I will personally form a Khanate to go hunting these things because they are no good and I hate them.
I'm in.
All right.
Well, the thing too is it's almost like it does feel like a very almost tribalistic declaration of war, and that it's some kind of primordial monster that it sees you and it knows that you see it, and so it's kind of, it's like the movie Predator when Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of becomes self-aware and it and the Predator on like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, it's it does the Predator thing where it
fight or flight
throws its voice and
the mimic thing. I briefly touched on it, but the real sketchy thing is that in addition to mimicking short phrases to get people to further in the woods, they know, or they seem to know, what triggers people. Like, for example, they prefer to mimic women and children because they know people are more inclined to investigate or get involved.
To hear a kid crying in the woods, yeah, that makes more sense.
It's also picking phrases like "help me," stuff like that.
Yeah. Moral of the story, like in a nutshell, good survival guide. If you see a person, anyone, especially a woman or a child, alone in the wilderness, stay the fuck away. You know what? If they're Little Orphan Annie and they're seriously Little Orphan Annie, then that sucks, but I'm not going to risk it. Sorry, darling.
Little Orphan Annie.
No, I get that. That's really disturbing. It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
So, is there so if you happen on them or whatever, is there like a preferred method of killing these things?
The white ash thing. They also seem to believe that rituals performed by shaman or medicine men can like remove unclean spirits or ward them away.
Okay.
I have never read or heard of any way to deal with a fleshgait, because straight up, no one who's ever really like gotten that close has survived to tell the tale. I mean, I know that sounds dramatic and foreboding, but really the only reason we have stories of them is because they didn't get close enough. They didn't engage.
Right.
Yeah.
They were close enough to see it, but then they beat feet and got the fuck out of there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Pandora's box in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I suspect high explosives would do a decent trick. Just saying.
Well, fire is the great cleanser.
Napalm cures everything.
Yeah.
Well, napalm cleanses. Yeah, napalm cleanses down.
It cleanses communism, certain religions. You name it.
Look, Zev. If we actually go on a fleshgait hunt, we have to be marching in cadence to napalm sticks to gates.
Personally, I would just discourage the idea in general because...
Is white phosphorus the same as white ash? Is that close enough?
No. I think this is a lot more dangerous. Let's just put it that way.
Actually relevant. I do recall some of them, and not necessarily the American ones so much, but at least the Aboriginal stories. They do seem to really dislike fire, or they're confused by it. Like how I said in that one where the friend was staring at the fire like it confused him after he poured it out. So there's probably something to fire.
Cool. So just burn down all the forests and
your house.
Right, and your house and your neighbor's house. And no, let's not do that.
Just stand near the fire at all times. You'll be okay.
Right.
Yeah, more or less. Fire is life, which is the result of so much of the human psyche.
True.
Yeah, the thing with the fleshgait, though, like I said earlier, that goes back to the primordial, ancestral fear, is that these things are like literally the boogeyman. Like
they're literally like the thing that goes bump in the night. Yeah.
Yeah, like it is the OG boogeyman that makes you shit yourself.
Yep. Damn.
Personally, if I had to give a theory on what they are, I am either going to go with they are, the Native American thing, that they're people that are just really awful and thus, manifest as such, or they're straight up some kind of evil spirit, possessing an animal or a person and manifesting like that. Or alternatively, I think that there's some kind of weird, mysterious, cryptid, evil fucking hominid offshoot, maybe some kind of like subterranean offshoot of humanity that, almost, I guess, like the freaking snow elves in Skyrim, and that they're just like mutant, disgusting, wretched, fiends that come out of the dark to drag people away and consume them.
They sound really
what's disturbing about them is that they're intelligent. That they're going to try to
mimic people,
you.
and they go out of their way to try.
Hold on a second. Just the ability to mimic doesn't necessarily imply intelligence. I mean, like,
look at black people.
But it's a strategy.
It's not that they know how to mimic people. It's that they know what to mimic.
Yeah, they know what to mimic, and they know why to mimic it. Like their whole goal is, it varies, but a lot of times it seems like they're trying to infiltrate groups of people, either to lead them all further into the woods, or just for shits and giggles, I guess. And there's a similar thing called the Goat Man. I'm not really going to go into it, but it's more or less
another episode.
Yeah. Well, there's not much.
Is the Goat Man a whole episode?
Well, they're similar to.
We can do another 3-part cryptid episode.
Yeah, you could. Okay. But
there's a lot more cryptids because there's all kinds of. I mean, there's not.
It's not. Look, Johnny, it's not a Paranormies episode unless we say, but that's for another episode at least once.
Right. I wasn't saying. That's what I was saying. Like, we've still got like the Jersey Devil. We've got the Chupacabra. We've got
the Mothman.
The Mothman. Yeah.
Oh man, I've actually heard about some new sightings of the Mothman lately.
Yeah, recently or relatively recently.
Well, those are definitely going on another episode.
If you want,
did you want to finish your thought about the Goat Man?
Yeah, do the Goat Man thing. Yeah, sorry.
So the thing with the Goat Man that's different from the Fleshgait is, in addition to the appearance being more bestial, and they're honestly described as being kind of like satyrs, which makes me think there might be a connection there. They're not malevolent to the degree that Fleshgaits are. They don't really seem to want to eat people. They just kind of seem like they want to fuck with them psychologically. They're much better at imitating than the Fleshgait. The Fleshgait sounds robotic and forced, whereas the Goat Man seems to be able to mimic inflection and tone, the kind of mind behind the quote. And they're also good at mimicking human behavior, like how I said the Fleshgait will be kind of awkward and distant. The Goat Man will allegedly be social, and a lot of times they appear as, oh, I'm just another hiker out here by myself in the middle of the fucking woods late at night.
A smart adaptation?
I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
Yeah. Or it's, a group of people are hiking and then they'll notice, oh, there's another hiker that's, a short distance behind us. Oh, he's probably okay. Just some other dude that's on the trail. But, they don't recall another car at the parking site. They don't recall seeing him, on the previous 5 miles of the trail. It's almost like he just came out of the woods.
Yeah, and they seem to be more akin to, your coyote archetypes, everything like that.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily violent, but they will scare the ever-loving shit out of you because it amuses them.
That's why
I think we've learned a very valuable lesson from this.
Stay the fuck out of the woods.
No. But if you ever meet anybody in the woods, including people you went into the woods with, kill them.
If they left your fucking sight, they're already dead.
If it has a heartbeat, kill it. Even yourself. You can't trust anyone.
All right.
Trust no one, not even yourself.
The Jews got me.
Oh, and we get it in right at the very end. We said the J word. All right.
We almost got...
we almost went a whole episode without saying it. All right, guys. Well,
I was talking about Jews' ashes.
We did talk about Jews' ashes, didn't we? All right, that was fair. You said it twice. All right, so we got
an extra J.
Anyways, wow.
I think we said like Jews twice, the N word with an A once, and the outright. No,
I did it too.
Zevs. Okay, so we
don't matter.
All right. Hey guys.
Nobody's.
We're not keeping score. There's no scores. We're not. This isn't Scrabble.
I was just saying this was a very clean, very little shit posting ep.
Okay. Calm down.
Okay.
It's okay, honey boo boo.
Yeah. We are. We're very thankful to have our friend Zev come on and talk about Fleshgaits and Wendigos. And
pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, and skinwalkers.
Nice and spicy.
Nice and spicy.
Good friend.
And and Hydro, you too.
I'm here.
Thanks for coming on, Hydro. Thanks for coming on, dude.
When I sometimes talk.
You had some good stuff to offer about skinwalkers and Windigos.
And I apologize for forgetting about you every single time.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Wait, you weren't doing it on purpose the third time?
Or the fourth time.
I'm gonna go on the Discord, and people are gonna make fun of me about that for the rest of my fucking life.
And it's
just
exactly
change your
what
name,
you deserve.
dude.
Yeah, you should probably just. You know what I would do? I would just kill myself. All right, so guys, thanks for coming on.
Or just stick around in Canada. The kebabs will do it for you.
Okay. All right. And here comes the shit posting part of the show. No. We are going to be back next week with another episode of the Ahnenerbe Hour with the Paranormies, and it's going to be pretty special next week.
Spoiler, it's still not the space episode
Yeah, but spoiler, it's a fucking guess.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's going to be something.
We will talk to you next week. We're going to get out of here, and we're going to do a creepypasta.
We'll send you off with a creepypasta that probably ain't going to top up to what Zev told us, but it'll still be a good time.
For the Paranormies, I am Johnny Monoxide. We have been with Hazzard, McRee, Adam Haidt, his deathliness, death, and Zev. We will talk to you next week.
And Hydro.
I was doing that on purpose. God damn it. 4 times.
It's just a fucking leaf. Who cares?
Later.
I was with 2 of my friends, Ben and Nick, on the holidays when it happened. We were in an isolated part of Greece, somewhere that doesn't show up on Google Maps for some reason, traveling down a long stretch of road in our hire car in search of the next major city to party in. After initially planning on driving through the night, we accepted that we had lost our way and it was getting too dark to continue, so we pulled into a gas station for directions on where we could stay. The old man handed us an old brochure of a nearby village and insisted we go check it out. Since we were completely lost, we were left with no other option. It was something different, we thought, but just how different we never would have guessed, as we took the next left turn and ventured into the headlight-lit darkness. The only form of lodging out there was in remote cabins, separated far apart from each other. For privacy, we guessed. The self-contained cabin had a bathroom, kitchen, queen bed, and a single bed. All that we needed for one night. Nick won the rock-off for the single bed, so Ben and I would be sharing. Nick snores anyway, so I was okay with that. One feature of the cabin that unnerved me, however, was the large, square, curtainless window that occupied the entire area of the vacant wall. It bothered me especially now because night had fallen, and the light was on inside, so it acted as a sort of two-way mirror. Anyone wearing black could easily look through without being noticed. We made plans to go out that night to the village bar, have some drinks, tell some stories, and see where the night took us. We decided that we would leave the key under the rock by the front porch, and if we were to split up, whoever came home first would leave the door open for others to get in. "Why don't you say it louder so everyone can hear where we hid it?" Ben joked. Nick responded by yelling it at the top of his lungs. I guess he thought that was funny or something. Luckily, our cabin was isolated out there and there was no one close by, I thought to myself as we drove off. It was a surprisingly fun night at the bar. We had plenty of shots of the local drink Ozo, until the bar staff informed us that we had drunk their stocks dry. It was cheap enough, though, in Greece. The next thing I knew, it was late, the bar was closing, and we had lost Ben. He must have left without us, though I don't remember him telling us he'd be leaving. I was slightly concerned by his out-of-character actions, but we left without him regardless, taking the car. "Man, I need to piss," I said, as I adjusted in my seat as the car headlights momentarily lit up the cabin and we turned into the driveway to the sound of gravel crunching under the tires. We checked under the rock for the key. It was gone. Then we tried the door handle, but it was locked. What the fuck? We both looked at each other. Ben must have come home before us, and he'd locked us out. "Ben, open up! I gotta piss! Hurry up, Ben!" We banged on the door. I heard a stumbling inside like someone literally crawling awkwardly on all fours out of bed. Damn, he must be really damn drunk. "I can't hold this piss in anymore," I said, as Nick and I went to separate sides of the cabin to urinate as Ben finally opened the door. It felt good pissing, But that feeling was harshly interrupted by what caught my attention on the large window, sending a large shiver up my spine. There was this long, thin set of handprints, only visible on the window from the mist outside. It looked longer than any human's hand, but much, much thinner. Holy shit. But I quickly cleared my mind of the scary and irrational images it was creating, as it was certainly just a regular human hand that had been smeared, causing the illusion that it's longer. Right? Either way, it occurred to me that someone or something might have been watching us. I hurriedly finished my business and rushed inside. We are not turning the light on, I thought, to prevent anything from looking in at us as I locked the front door and we went straight to bed. Nick fell asleep instantly, snoring before his head had even hit the pillow. And after a few minutes of tolerating Nick's inconsistent snores, my drooping eyes fell wearily, so I closed them. As soon as they shut, I couldn't help but get the burning feeling that Ben's eyes had opened suddenly and were staring straight at me, menacingly. My body rose in temperature and my heart began beating quicker as I sensed this, as if Ben was holding his breath, vision fixated on me angrily in the darkness. Sorry if we hadn't gone home with him, jeez. Why was he so angry? After a few minutes of calming myself from this irrational fear, I drifted off to sleep. I awoke to the sound of knocking at the door. Open up! You said you wouldn't lock it! The thuds continued and grew louder. Open the door, it's fucking cold out here! This was the single scariest moment of my entire life, and the most paralyzing sensation swept over my entire body. It was Ben at the door. Suddenly there was a movement in the sheets next to me. Something stirring. I got up faster than I ever have in my life and ran to the door. Nick had awoken and come to the same horrific realization as soon as I had, right behind me and kicking the door open and fleeing outside to the car. Not once did we look back. I started the car and beckoned Ben to follow, but he didn't know what had happened. Still facing into the room, he turned on the light to see inside. This was a true story. It really happened. You can ask Nick if you don't believe me. But I wouldn't ask Ben. He doesn't say much anymore after the incident, and whenever questioned about what he saw that night, his face turns pale and expressionless, and he will immediately shut the nearest curtain.